these branches that in this verse, the first verse refers to either what has been taught from in the other chapters, or with regard to the teaching of the Buddha. Master Kamala mentions that all the teachings either are leading to suchness or approaching it or actually landing it. And Master Nagarjuna says impermanence and suffering, teachings on them are for transforming the mind, for purifying the mind, and the actual purification takes place through the teaching on suchness, of emptiness. And in order to generate the view of understanding the emptiness, and also to enhance it further and further, these teachings on suchness are given. And so with regard to leading to the suchness, or reality, we have teachings on suffering, impermanence, selflessness, and seeing things as being impure. So these do not have direct touch with emptiness, but ultimately you have to come to the understanding of emptiness. And then with regard to teaching on selflessness of persons, a gross level of selflessness of persons, except the aggregates, the constituent factors, and the sources of consciousness, there is no person, self-sufficiently existent person. And therefore, in these teachings, the teachings which teach this do not actually touch the emptiness directly. And therefore, these teachings lead you to approach the emptiness. And then, the teachings where the Buddha says that things have no independent existence actually teach emptiness. And therefore, so the wisdom, where it is said for the sake of wisdom, so the teachings of the Buddha are given in order to generate and in order to enhance and actually come to understand emptiness. So with regards to all our problems and the faults that we commit, they come from afflictive emotions, and there are within the afflictions those afflictions which are not view, but then there are those which are the views or inflicted intelligence, on the basis of which we develop the other afflictive emotions as well, which are not views. And so ultimately, grasping at true existence, there are different interpretations as to whether this is only afflictive emotion or also it is cognitive obscuration. And so according to the certain school, even the arahats, the Shravaka and Pratyeka Buddha Arya beings realize the subtle selflessness. And so Master Nagarjuna says, as long as there is grasping at true existence of the aggregates, the psychophysical aggregates, so although you may have come to realize a certain degree of selflessness of persons, but it's not the realization of selflessness of person in the sense of this person having no objective existence. So the ultimate realization of selflessness of person is when you see even the psychophysical aggregates to have no objective existence. As in the certain text it says, in the Dzogchen tradition they use the term groundless, rootless. So this term, groundless and without any base, means that you have to get at the root of the problems, and therefore when you see that things have no ground or base, which means that do not have any objective existence, so as long as grasping at objective existence of psychophysical aggregates is there, you will not have complete understanding of the selflessness of persons. And whether it's afflictive emotions or obscuration to knowledge, the actual antidote to them is understanding and insight into emptiness. So to reach Buddha, Arhat shape or mere liberation or omniscient state, this is the wisdom that leads to those goals. And therefore, the Buddha himself had experienced these and shared it with us. So, in order for us to reach the same goal that the Buddha has reached, we have to develop this wisdom, understanding the true nature, the final nature of things. Otherwise, compassion and loving kindness and so forth will not go directly against these defilements at all. So when we talk about searching for the designated object, the conventional things are not are accepted without doing any analysis into the way they exist. So there is this way of existence of things, and because of, on the basis of that, we can talk about good and bad, samsara and nirvana. So the conventional way of existence of things is not the final nature way that things exist. Because if it were, then the functions and the doers of actions and so forth, actions and doers of things would have to be found when we search for them within the aggregates. So how these things exist, there, on the other hand, there is the way the things actually exist, which is the true nature, the reality of things. And so we have two levels of understanding the realities. One, which is the conventional nature of things, and then the ultimate nature of things. So when we do critical analysis into the way things exist, we find the ultimate existence. So in the non-Buddhist traditions, and then with regard to the two truths, even the non-Buddhist traditions talk about it, and also the philosophical schools within Buddhism, the lower schools, such as the Vaibhashikas and so forth, also talk about it. So, for example, the Vaibhashikas talk about conventional truth as being those which, when you try to separate them with your mind, they the things lose their identity as being this and that. Those are conventional, and then those that do not lose their identity when such an analysis is done, they are ultimate. And then the Sautrantikas say those that function like things that come about through causes and conditions are ultimate existence, and then those that do not have any function like that, moment-to-moment disintegration, are conventional. So conventional and ultimate, these are accepted as being the two truths. Ultimate is not the object of mind. The mind is spoken as conventional. So, in one interpretation, the ultimate is not object of mind, means it is object of mind, of dualistic mind. So this can be supported by the line where it says the yogis too are undermined by the higher ones in verse 4. So the term for mind in Tibetan is lo, same, but in Sanskrit is different in Sanskrit. So in the Sanskrit version, where through the difference of their intelligence, the yogis too are undermined by the higher ones. So the Tibetan term is only law for this one, intelligence as well as mind. So Kunalama Rinpoche made this distinction. The world is seen to be of two types, yogis and common people. So usually I say this, there is the external world and the internal world of living beings. So within the living beings, amongst the living beings, here, with regard to the term yogis, which means, in Tibetan, the term is nel jor, nel meaning correct or proper meaning, and then jorba means joining to that, applying to that. So for ordinary people, we take things for granted, how it works in the world, is accepted in the world, but scientists, compared to them, are not satisfied with what is believed ordinarily, but they actually investigate how things are produced, how things are, what, for example, form, physical things as well as sound, what sound is, what form or physical thing is, and how they change from moment to moment, and then also they check into examine light and also waves, how the light waves are formed, and so they also check into sound. So they we think the sound comes from somewhere out there, but the scientists find that we hear sound when the stimulus touch something inside the ear, and so forth. And so, in that sense, we can make the distinction between ordinary beings as being ordinary and the scientists as yogis. But some scientists are quite radical. But that may be exception. So they just follow what earlier scientists have said, and they do not try to broaden their scope of knowledge. So in certain discipline, particular discipline of science, they just follow what earlier scholars and scientists have said. But genuine scientists are very broad-minded, very optimistic, and unbiased. They think anything is possible. So, of course, what is found through scientific research can be said to be existent, whereas there are, if they find something to be non-existent, then we also may have to would have to accept them. So, as I said before, in relation to this Mount Meru, if something is accessible, then and it is not actually seen by our perceptions, then we have to accept that to be non-existent. And so Mount Meru, the shadow is actually said to be falling on us when the sun goes behind it. And so we say the shadow is actually what we experience, but then the object from which the shadow comes cannot be seen. So if the Mount Meru itself is something which is not accessible and then cannot appear to us, then its shadow may also not appear to us. So in some place and space, time and space, where if something is accessible, and if where something should be accessible, and if it's not, then we can say that this thing does not exist. So we cannot say merely because it is not seen that something is non-existent. So genuine scientists who are unbiased will not say that something that they have not been able to find today does not exist at all. So many of the things that they have found today were not discovered in the past. So those were not found to be non-existent in the past, nor non-existent now. So there's a difference between not finding something and finding something to be not non-existent. The world of common people are undermined by the world of yogis. Through differences in their intelligence, yogis are undermined by the higher ones. So for ordinary people, if we say these trees are now 100 years old, or some flowers, we see some flower and we say today, and we say, oh, this flower was there yesterday. So we have this notion of whatever was there yesterday is here today. So if we think carefully, closely, then what existed yesterday has actually ceased. Today's flower is new. And so, on a conventional, ordinary level, we say, oh, this flower was there yesterday. But if we carefully check, then we find that they are, the flower is not the same. And then we can talk about the conceptual and non-conceptual minds. So within the yogis, those who do some analysis and find some things, So within the yogis, there are different levels of understandings. So within, for example, our own Buddhist tradition, the lower, what the lower schools posit and assert are undermined by the higher schools. So there are things like that. Now here, undermining means by using reason and logic, but not by force. And so a thesis is proved by examples accepted by both. So both the parties have to talk about this one thing, and then you have to argue between each other. And unanalyzed practitioners train for the result. So what is a common example for both? So how could there be something which is commonly acceptable to both? So for example, we can talk on the level of how things affect us, how causes and conditions bring about their effects. And so on that level we are to talk. The world sees things as conceived and conceives them to be truly existent, not like an illusion. In this regard, there is dispute between yogis and the world. And so we use the term realist, which refers to Chittamatra and the philosophical schools below it. And then within the Madhyamaka philosophical school itself, we have those which accept, assert a true existence, and those they do not. So for the Savatantriga Madhyamakas, they say when they make the distinction between provisional and definitive sutras of the Buddha, they say they actually qualify that the term ultimate to say that sutras which show literally that things do not have ultimate existence. True existence are definitive, and that those which literally do not literally show that things have no ultimate true existence are provisional. So between the Madhyamaka to Madhyamaka followers, they talk about valid cognition. Whether some cognition is valid or not is differentiated on the basis of whether the perception is mistaken in respect to the appearance of a self-characterized phenomena or not. So the Savatantriga Madhyamakas say that if things do not have self-defined characteristic, then they cannot exist. So in the 25,000 verses of Panchaparamita, it says, emptiness does not make this form empty, but form itself is empty. And in the Heart Sutra, it says form is empty, emptiness is form. So these two quotations from these two sutras show that the form, or physical form, which is conventionally existent, meaning that we have this conclusion that the physical form, which is accepted commonly, exists. Whereas according to Bhava Viveka, he says when it comes to identifying the person, a person, he identifies a person ultimately to be the consciousness of that. So being unable to posit and assert that a person exists merely by way of name and designation, he actually has to have something that he can objectify, and therefore, he says, we accept the consciousness to be the person. Whereas in the Pajaparamita Sutras, the Buddha himself says these are merely a name. And so if there is something objectively existing, then things cannot be merely a name. So in this regard, there is dispute between yogis and the common people. Of course, the things, there are tangible things which can be touched, which can also be tasted, and so forth. But how they exist as renowned in the world is left at that. And even direct perceptions of form and so forth only view conventionalities and not valid cognitions. So these are accepted through renown and not because of the appearance of things and having some self-defined characteristic. So with regards to valid cognition, those realists say that the things have some self-defined characteristic just as they appear. And so they say valid cognition is valid cognition because of being incontrovertible in respect of self-characterized or self-defined characteristics. And form and so on false, like worldly acceptance of that, what is unclean and so forth as clean and the like. So when we talk about form, sound and so forth, we accept them without doing any philosophical inquiry into them, but accept it merely through renown. For the sake of letting the world enter into reality, the guardian taught about things in the ultimate sense. And so, impermanence and suffering, these teachings are given to train our mind in a gradual manner. But in the ultimate sense, these phenomena also do not exist. Not only that the mistaken conceptions are ultimately do not exist. In the ultimate sense, however, they are not momentary, but that is also contradictory conventionally. The convention of yogis has no fault, otherwise their discernment of the uncleanness of other would be undermined by the world. So the qualm that is raised is that even in conventional terms, the impermanence and so forth may not exist, the momentariness of things. And then it says the conventions of yogis has no fault. Otherwise, their discernment of the uncleanness and others would be undermined by the world. From the illusion like victorious ones, positive forces arise, just as for those believing in true things. But if sentient beings were So although things are like illusion, they do appear to have some true existence, objective existence, but they do not exist that way. They are merely a name and posited, designated by name. So we have the illusion like basis, the path, and the resultant goal that is attained. So those who view the victorious one, the Buddha, the Tathagata, as truly existent, so from the illusion like victorious ones, positive forces arise, just as for those believing in true things. But if a sentient being were like an illusion, then how could he take rebirth once having died? So just because something is durable and something endures or not, we cannot say that they have true existence or not. So a person which is a magical illusion and is not a real person, but a real person is animate, and therefore he or she has feeling and is affected. So long as conditions are gathered together, the illusion lasts that long. And how could a sentient being be truly existent? Merely because his continuum lasts long. In muttering and so forth of an illusory person, there is no negativity, since it has no mind. But with someone having an illusory mind, positive and negative forces accrue. So there is mention of different types of nirvana, a natural nirvana, then nirvana with residue, without residue, and so forth. So recently I met with some Thai scholars and monks for 3 days. And one of the bhikshus, Thai bhikshus, said, he said, in Tibetan Buddhism, there is mention of samsara and nirvana being same. So, of course, such things are mentioned in texts written by Nagarjuna also. So, the natural nirvana, on top of that, when by applying the antidotes, when you overcome all the defilements on the mind, then we say you have attained nirvana. So it's not just that the mind is empty, but you have to attain the freedom from these defilements. So verse number 12, 13, 11 to 14 read. And next is the refutation of Chittamatras. When even the deceptive awareness doesn't exist, by what is illusion perceived? And so forth. And next verse also. Verse 18, but it is like the way a lamp flame perfectly illuminates its own characteristics. The flame of a lamp is not being illuminated. Since darkness, it is not obscure darkness. For an intrinsic blue to be blue, it does not depend on something else, as does a crystal. We see some that depend on others and some that do not. And so when we talk about Chittamatra, the mind-only school, the term only refers to the fact that they do not accept the externality of phenomena such as form, sound, and so forth, but everything is merely mind. So they say the form, sound, and so forth do not exist out there, and because of the manifestation of the imprints for them, they appear and they do not have any external existence. Although but then they do appear to have some external existence, and that is because of dualistic view. They say, so all this gross and subtle selflessness, teachings on selflessness, is to actually destroy the solidification of things. So as I was saying in the previous days, when we have attachment and aversion, it happens because of this clinging and attachment to oneself. And because of this clinging to oneself, then when something attractive, something is found to be attractive, you become attached to it. And when something causes provocation, then you dislike it. So there are people who are very easily provoked, and those who have a very big heart, so who are not easily disturbed even when provoked. When you see, when you go to the market in Varanasi, you see in grocery shops some fruits. When you see them, first you will think, oh, there is fruit there, but you will not have that kind of an attachment. And when the fruit is toppled and all the fruits fall on the ground, scattered on the ground, then you will not find it dear to actually about them. But once you buy the fruit and you think that it's mine now, and at that point, if a cow actually topples the pile of fruits on the ground, then you will actually take care of those fruits and saying, "Oh, my fruit," and you will pick up and actually dust them and clean them. And so once you have less clinging and attachment when you do not possess the fruits, but this is there. The greater clinging and attachment is there once you possess them, and therefore the teachings of Chittamatra, the teachings on selflessness of person helps to reduce this clinging to a personal self. Whereas on the top of that, then when you say things such as form and sound and so forth do not have any external objective existence, although they appear to have such an external way of existence externally, it is merely because of our projection. And so this helps to reduce that. So Chittamatra is saying that things are just the manifestation or appearance of your mind, reflection of your mind, and you should not get attached to them or feel averse to them. And so it helps to reduce clinging to these external objects. But then the Chittamatras also say the consciousness which perceives these things have some true existence. And therefore, Madhyamakas say that nothing has true existence. So they criticize that, of course, your assertion that things do not have any objective or external existence reduces the clinging to externality of things outside there. But then it does not help to reduce your clinging to your consciousness as having some true existence. And therefore, the Madhyamakas emphasize the understanding that it is important to understand and gain insight into, to see the internal experiences also having no true existence. And so if you use these philosophical assertions for one's own spiritual development, they become deeper and deeper. But although things do not have any inherent existence or true existence, there are Madhyamakas who say there things have some kind of inherent existence as well, and therefore when you still go further saying that things have no inherent existence, no intrinsic existence, that actually helps to do away with objectification of things completely. And so things are merely designated, and therefore this is a difficult thing in Madhyamaka, to say that things are merely designated and therefore things have their existence through that. So this it is a difficult point in Madhyamaka to assert that things are merely a name and exist by mere designation. So it is quite clear that we can conclude that things have no objective existence from their own side, and therefore they do exist, but how they exist is merely by way of convention, our subjective mind and conventions. So although things exist in this way, but how they appear to us when you check, they appear to have some kind of objective existence, independent existence out there. And therefore, you can confirm from these kind of reasonings and experience that everything, bad, good, actions and agents, and the basis, path and fruits, everything can be posited within this understanding of mere designation and mere name. Number members number. So next is verse number 23, rejecting self-cognizant mind, which is posited by the Chittamatra. So whether things exist or not should be asserted on by say whether something is perceived by valid cognition or not, as we give the definition of an existent thing as being that which is perceived by valid cognition. So now, how do we say that this perception is valid or not, a perception or a cognition which sees something? So the best is saying that what the Madhyamakas who do not accept any inherent existence say, that things are accepted by renown and convention, and there's no other convention which undermines that convention, and that it is not even also undermined by the ultimate analysis into things. So these three criteria, on the basis of these three criteria, things are said to be existent conventionally. So when you say a cognition or a perception is valid perception, how do you find, how do you know that this is a valid perception? Of course, you can find, like scientists do, if one person finds something to be valid, and then others also do this analysis and examination into things and find the same thing, and it's confirmed through that. Then you say something is valid, and the cognition also is valid. So it's, in other words, when consciousness arises, a conceptual consciousness arises, the Chittamatras say that there is a self-cognizance. And because of the self-cognizance, which actually sees the conceptual thought, therefore that conceptual thought is said to be valid cognition. But if the cognizing mind does not exist, how can consciousness be recalled? For an intrinsic blue, sorry, verse number 18, 19, 20, 21. So the Chittamatras use this reason to prove that there is a self-cognizance. But if a cognizing mind does not exist, how can a consciousness be recalled? So they argue that when once I have seen blue color or a blue object, I will be able to remember that in the future, and that is because of the cognizant, self-cognizant mind which was there when you have seen the blue. Through a connection with experiencing another, recollection happens like a rat's poison. So the Madhyamakas reply that when you say, I have seen, or I have seen a blue object, that memory or remembrance comes because of the interaction between the perception and the object. And you can remember the object and then also remember the perception, but it can illuminate itself, because when with one condition, other conditions, one sees. So in the Heart Sutra, there is mention of there being no eye, no ear, no nose, and so forth, as well as no form, no sound, and so forth. So those which are seen, heard, or known are not to be negated. So these objects and the perceivers are not rejected. But here, the conception of true existence, which is the cause of suffering, is to be rejected. The why it is to be rejected, it is because it is the cause of suffering. The conception of true existence serves as the basis or the foundation for our attachment and aversion. So in order to overcome this strong clinging, so when these emotions arise in us, what we see in things is as if they have some beauty in objectively, or some ugliness objectively, and therefore, because of that, we have to the conception of true existence is to be rejected. So in the 25,000 verses of the Perfection of Wisdom Sutra, and then there is 8,000, and then 18,000, and 100,000 Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. So all these explicitly show emptiness, and implicitly the Bodhisattva paths. So merely using the word emptiness, so these scriptures don't just mention emptiness, but they say this and this thing is empty, and so the emptiness is related to, taught in relation to different things, like eyes, nose, ears, and the body, and then also form, sound, is smell, or taste, odor, and then also the consciousnesses which arise in connection with them. And therefore, the Heart Sutra says that all the five aggregates also are empty of intrinsic nature. And so that phrase should be related to the rest of the text, where it says there is no nose, no tongue, no eye, and so forth. We have to say, understand that there is no intrinsically existing nose, and so forth. So I have a story to tell here. Maybe there are people who have not heard it before, but some of you may have heard. Dr. Rinpoche, His Holiness's elder brother, the late brother, told me this story. There were two Amdovas, two people from Amdo. One knew the Heart Sutra and the other didn't. And so the one who knew the Heart Sutra, who could recite it, actually recited boastfully in front of the other one. And then, at the end of having recited that, the one who didn't know the Heart Sutra said, "You said there's no nose, no eye, no ear, no tongue, and so forth. Why say so many things? You could have said there is no head." So that's the simplest thing to do, he said. This second person said this. So if there is nothing, then Buddha could have said that, but things do exist, but they do not exist the way they appear to us. How they appear to us is as if things have some kind of objective existence. Eye does exist, but not inherently, and ear also exists, but not inherently. So here the conception of true existence, which is the cause of suffering, is to be rejected. And so, true conception of things that arise from causes and conditions is said to be ignorant. And from that ensue the rest of the 12 chains of 12 links of dependent origination. This is what Nagarjuna says. So because things have come from causes and conditions, that very thing indicates or shows that the effect arises in dependence on its cause. So an effect can have its existence because of its dependence on its cause. So then if you think further, not only the effects are dependent on or their causes, but the causes themselves are reliant or dependent on the effects. Although their effects are not their cause, but a cause is an effect in relation to its own cause. And therefore, you have a cause because of an effect that it gives rise to. And therefore, they are interdependent. Because a cause gets its identity in relation to its effect. Although it does not arise after the effect itself, but because it's related to it, therefore it's dependent. And similarly, we have the valid cognitions and objects, and also actions and the objects on which the actions happen, and then also the doer and the agent, and therefore the agent, the action, and the acted upon object are dependent, interdependent. So because there is in effect, therefore we can say something is a cause. So a cause is asserted or posited because of its relation to an effect. And so the ignorance about the reality of things is the root of samsara. Master Nagarjuna says, this is what the Buddha has taught. And then also the grasping at true existence of aggregates gives rise to the grasping at true existence of persons and so forth. So just as ignorance perceives things, there is nothing conventionally in the things, the way ignorance actually perceives. And so you have to see how the ignorance grasps at true existence of things, and that you have to know the fact that there is no true existence in order to do away with ignorance. So we can talk about the absence of an elephant here in this place, because if there is an elephant, then it should be seen. And therefore, since the elephant is not seen here, therefore we can say this place is absent of an elephant. And similarly, things do appear to have some kind of existence, true existence, but since when you do critical analysis, you can find that there is no such true existence, we can say true existence is not rejected. So what is the point of talking about emptiness, saying that things do not exist the way they appear to us, which is to say that things do not have any inherent existence? So what is the benefit of seeing emptiness? So the distorted conceptions must be overcome because they give rise to attachment, aversion, and sufferings. So the illusion is not separate from the mind. Verse number 26. Despite being inseparable, it is still impermanent. If it were a thing, how could it be not different? And if it is not different, it could not be a thing. Although the illusion is not truly existent, it is still an object of view. So it is for the viewer. But samsara must have a thing as its support. Otherwise, it would be like space. How could a non-thing supported by a truly existent thing come to have a function? The mind you asserted would be something existing alone, accompanied by nothing. And if the mind is free of apprehension, then everyone would be a Tathagata. And if that were the case, what benefit would there be in analyzing mind only? And then next, verse number 30 down, deals with refutation of the assertion that the path which understands emptiness is of no benefit. So we may perceive other things like aggregates and so forth to have true existence, and they may appear to have true existence, and we may cling to that way of existence. And also, with regard to the internal experience of mind, this may happen. So when you are able to overcome the subtle objects which are clung on to by through apprehension of clinging to true existence, then you will be able to overcome the grosser the ways how things appear to the mind. And then the afflictions, when you overcome the subtler afflictions and so forth, then you will be able to overcome the grosser ones. Even upon knowing the illusion, like how are afflictions gotten rid of? Since lust for an illusory woman can arise even in one who conjures her up. So verse number 34 says, so a mind which is totally absorbed in emptiness, in the direct perception of emptiness, and from that comes the result where you have both the absorption and post-absorption state together in the resultant state. So it says, when neither the things nor the emptiness of things stand before the mind, having no other aspect, there is full pacification pacification devoid of objects. Just as a wish-fulfilling gem and a wish-granting tree fulfill a wish, all wishes, likewise, through the power of prayers, the enlightened body of a victor appears to the disciples. For example, when a Garuda healer who empowered with a healing Khan has passed away, that Khan can pacify poison and the like long after the healer's death. Similarly, when a Bodhisattva has passed into Nirvana after setting up the reliquary of a victor by conforming to the Bodhisattva's conduct, he still performs all deeds. So from within the absorption, the state of equipoise, total equipoise or absorption in emptiness, the Buddhas arise in the form bodies. And then with that, the Buddhas perform their enlightened activities effortlessly. And they happen spontaneously. establishing verse number 40, establishing that the wisdom of emptiness is ultimately the true path, even to whom those who seek mere liberation. So liberation occurs through seeing the truth. What is the use of seeing emptiness? So by meditating on what is taught in the Four Noble Truths, you can attain liberation. So why the need to see emptiness is the qualm. And so why? Because in the scriptures it is proclaimed that without this path there is no enlightenment. So although it is said in the scriptures, but now the next column is about whether Mahayana is teaching of the Buddha. So but it says, but Mahayana is not established. Well, how can your scriptures be established? Because they are established for both parties. They were not established as valid at the outset. Another criterion that would be given that would give confidence in them would apply equally to the Mahayana. If acceptance by two different parties makes something true, then the Vedas and so forth also would become true. But it is because the Mahayana is disputed. And so in the first noble turning of the wheel, the Buddha has taught the psychophysical aggregates have some kind of self-defining characteristics. And then he goes further into the subtler teachings where these psychophysical aggregates are said to have no self-defining characteristic. So the important point here is to understand is that if you don't accept the Perfection Wisdom Sutras as the teaching of the Buddha, then it would be difficult to explain precisely what the true cessation is. And without that, you will not have aspiration to pursue the true cessation and the true path. And therefore, the elaborate explanation and precise explanation of the true path and true cessation is found in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras. In the Pramana-Vartika, there are various reasons to prove liberation and also higher rebirths. And so you have these reasonings which give certitude in you about them. And then in Buddha Madhyamaka Karika, the Fundamental Treatise of the Middle Way by Nagarjuna and its explanation on Prasanapada define the reality of things very precisely. And then in Abhisamaya Alamkara, there is teaching on the two truths, and when it deals with instructions, it goes through the two truths and then the four truths, Four Noble Truths. So if you don't understand the two truths well, then you will not understand the interdependent nature of things. So if you are not able to consider or think about things having no objective existence, then you will not be able to understand precisely how to understand the interdependent nature of things. And so, as it is explained in the Madhyamaka tradition, if you understand the two truths, then you will understand how dependent origination means emptiness, and emptiness dawns as dependence. So if you understand the dependence in terms of how things are designated, and you will not be able to understand the causality, dependence in terms of causality as well. And you can also prove that because things are causally dependent, therefore they are dependent, dependently designated. And so these two can actually, the understandings of causality, dependence in terms of causality and dependence in terms of designation can help each other, complement each other. And therefore, understanding the two truths, you will understand the Four Noble Truths. And then you will understand, have a valid ascertainment of the Dharma jewel. And then you will also be able to ascertain the Buddha and Sangha. And then in Abhisamaya Alamkara, it says not clinging to them means not clinging to this life, pleasures of this life, and also the pleasures of next life. And so this is a great summary. So while the bhikshus are the foundation of the teachings, verse number 44, it is hard to posit the bhikshus. For those minds with objects, it is hard to transcend sorrow. So when you objectify things, there is still slightest objectification of things left. You will not be able to overcome all the defilements. So if you understand emptiness and dependent origination of things, then with that understanding, so for example, those who reject Mahayana as teaching of the Buddha, who say liberation occurs through seeing the truth, so what they are thinking about is regarding the afflictive emotions. They actually identify afflictive emotions which have to do with the grasping at a self-sufficiently substantial existence I. And so it says, if by overcoming such afflictive emotion, then if you are able to reach liberation, for those minds with object means that although but they are liberated as they eliminate afflictions. So they may be liberated having overcome the grasping at self-sufficiently, substantially existent I, but there is this subtle affliction left. And that liberation must occur immediately. Despite their lacking afflictions, they have the karmic potential. But it is definite that they do not have craving for obtaining rebirth. And even if this craving is not afflictive, why is it not like ignorance? Through the force of feeling, there is craving, and feelings exist in them as well. So craving is this state of mind where you actually become obsessed with something. And when you have some experience, you are obsessed with it. And so that arises when you have clinging to a feeling being some kind of an existent, true existent. And a mind having object is what some have. For a mind that is parted from emptiness, what is subsided will arise again, like the meditative equipoise of non-discrimination. Therefore, meditate on emptiness. If you accept as spoken by the Buddha any speech that conforms to the sutras, then are the Mahayanas not sutras, which for the most part are equivalent to sutras. If because of one exception all would become corrupt, then why, because of one equivalence to the sutras, would not all have been spoken by the Buddha? And who would consider unacceptable some speech, the depth of which Mahakashapa and the like could not fathom, because you cannot understand it? The fruit of emptiness is this. While being freed from the extremes of attachment and fear, one is able to remain in samsara for the sake of those who suffer due to ignorance. Emptiness is the remedy to the darkness of afflictive and cognitive obscurations. How can one wishing to quickly achieve omniscience not meditate on it? While fear should be with, what gives rise to suffering? Emptiness pacifies suffering. Why be fearful about that? So when you have afflictive emotions, these destructive emotions, then you are destroyed as well as others, other sentient beings. So when you see this, the disadvantage of these, then you will also wish to actually get out of it. So when you look at the system of the working of these afflictive emotions, you'll find that all these other afflictive emotions have their root in the ignorance grasping at true existence. So while fear should be with what gives rise to suffering, emptiness pacifies suffering. Why be fearful about that? Verse 55. And then next, there is a person who appropriates for aggregates, and then the appropriated aggregates. And then we have the person who experiences the aggregates and the aggregates which are experienced. So on the basis of grasping a true existence of psychophysical aggregates, we develop this grasping at true existence of a person. So when you think about a person, that person, Puntok, for example, his or her body will appear to us. So grasping a true existence of the aggregates is the grasping at the self of a person, and on the basis of that, we develop the clinging or onto a self of a person. Self of a phenomena gives rise to self of a person. So, a reason that established the view of emptiness, establishing self as a persons. Verse 56. If there was something called a self, there would be something to be afraid. But as one finds self nowhere, who is there to experience fears? So when you think about yourself, the I does not exist to be dependent on the psychophysical aggregates, but it appears as if this I is like a master of the aggregates. verse 57, 58. So teeth, hair, nails are not the self, nor is self the bones or blood. The self is neither mucus nor flame, nor is self lymph or pus. Self is not fat nor sweat. Self is not neither the self, the lung nor liver. Self is not any of the other visceral organs. Neither is self feces or nor urine. Flesh and skin are not the self, nor is self heat or wind. In no way is self one of the bodily orifices, nor are the 6 types of consciousness a self. And so, in the jewel garland of Nagarjuna, he says a person is neither the earth, wind, nor earth or wind, and so forth. So nor are the 6 types of consciousness a self. So in the jewel garland it says, so if these 6 elements are earth, water, fire, wind, and consciousness, and space and consciousness, if they are not the self, what else is a person? So he says, not merely not finding a person through analysis is not emptiness, because when you see emptiness, that perception has to do away with the both the extremes of nihilism and permanence. And so Nagarjuna says, after doing this analysis, what else is a person then? And therefore, since a person does exist, it's undeniable. He says a person is a composite of the 6 elements, and therefore it's not a person does not exist ultimately, and therefore he says that a person is designated on the basis of these 6 elements. And so the Master Chandrakirti also says a person is designated on the basis of the 5 aggregates. So a person exists relatively, exists by way of designation, and therefore there is a person. The way this person, when we think of ourselves, the way this I or yourself appears to you is the object of negation. That the self appears to have some objective existence. That is the object of negation. And next is the refutation of self as postulated by non-Buddhist tenets. Refutation of Samkhya school's position that consciousness itself. If the mind, 60, verse number 60, if the mind perceiving sound were permanent, the sound would not be cognized at all times, but what is cognized when bereft of an object? For what reasons could it be called a cognizer? If something could be cognizer without an object, then absurdly a stick would also be a cognizer. Therefore, without being associated with an object, it is certain that cognition is non-existent. It cognizes a sight. Why does it also not hear at that time? Because the sound is not nearby, then it is no longer a cognizer of it. How can something having the nature of a sound cognizer become a cognizer of sight? By imputation of a single person is a father and a son, and not due to his true nature. Likewise, courage, particles, and darkness are neither son nor father, and a cognizer of a sight has never been seen that has its nature associated with the sound cognizer. Like a dancer, it is still like itself, but is seen in another guise. Well, then it would be impermanent. And suppose the other guise is the very same. Its oneness is the oneness that did not exist before. And then there's from verse number 9, there's 7t, rejection of arguments concerning selflessness of person. It says, but if a self does not exist, then connection between the actions and their effects could not be maintained. And so here the difference between the Jigpa and Shigpa come. So since actions cease after having been done, to whom should the actions be ascribed? Since it is established for both of us that action and result have a different basis, and that the self and of action is not there, is it not pointless to dispute on this? So when you create a karma, the person creates a karma and then leaves the imprint on the mind. And so you have the continuum of the person, and therefore the mind becomes a stable basis on which the imprint is left. So if a person is said to be the consciousness, then verse number 37:3 says, the past and future minds are not the self, since they do not exist. And if the mind arising were the self, when it perishes, there would in fact be no self. For example, when the trunk of plantain tree is split apart, nothing is found. Likewise, when sought through investigation, a self cannot be true. And if sentient beings do not exist, towards whom does one generate compassion? And so if there is no self, then how do you cultivate compassion, and how do you also cultivate faith in the Buddhas? So it is the one imputed by ignorance, which is accepted for the goal. So ignorance here is not the ignorance which gives rise to, which is the grasping at true existence or anything like that, but in relation to the mind, the critical mind which analyzes or investigates or searches for the true existence of things, what is accepted conventionally is not doing that kind of analysis. So because of that, it's not seeing the reality, and therefore this term ignorance is used. So we can use the same term, but they have different meanings. For example, we use the term conventional truth, and conventional here means something else. It's different from how when we describe the ignorance, due to ignorance of something, some things are posited. So whose fruit is it? And then next, phenomena in relation to close placement of mindfulness of body. A body is neither, in the 78, a body is neither the feet nor the calves, nor is the body the thighs or the hips, neither the belly nor the back is the body, nor is the body the chest or the arms, the sides of the torso. And the hands are not the body, nor is the body the armpit and the shoulders, the visceral organs are also not it. Neither is the body head nor the throat. So what then is the body? If the body were located with the portion in these parts, then although the parts are located in its own parts, where are the subjects, the subparts in turn located? And so when you break down the body, it says similarly, because of being composite of fingers, where is the hand? Um, verse 85 onwards. So today in science, quantum physics, in quantum physics, they say the things there's nothing that is there objectively existent. So one quantum physics is something that is that science has discovered quite recently, and so one of the Indian quantum physicists told me that the idea that we have discovered, the discovery we have made in terms of how quantum physics has been found actually by Nagarjuna, according to one of his writings that he read. As parts as well, though, through breaking it down into particles, likewise is the particle for its directional parts, also because of lacking parts like space, they as well do not exist. Therefore, what wise would be attached to a bodily form that is like a dream, and since body does not exist that way, then what is a male and what is a female? And next, verse number 88 down shows seven phenomena in relation to close placement of mindfulness of feeling. In suffering, if suffering exists absolutely, why does it not undermine extreme joy? And if happiness exists intrinsically, why does a good taste and so forth not delight someone tormented by grief and the like? It is not experienced because it is overridden by something more intense. How can something not in the nature of an experience still be a feeling? Suffering exists in a subtle way. Doesn't this happiness eliminate only the gross? This suffering is but other form of mere happiness. There should be no suffering as even the subtle one of happiness nature. But if with the arising of discordant conditions there is no arising of suffering, well, is it not established that a feeling is something imputed by a thought? Because that feeling is not intrinsic, one should meditate on this analysis as remedy. So when one sees the non-inherent nature of feeling, then which in turn gives rise to craving, how do we overcome it? Verse 106 and verse 105. from verse 105, 105, the last two lines, the self phenomena in relation to close placement of mindfulness phenomena is taught, and then 106, rejecting the objection that the two truths are untenable. If conventional truth does not exist, how can there be two truths? If conventionalities are posited by others, how can sentient beings transcend sorrow? This existence is through other thoughts. This is not our mode of conventionality. If this is ascertained afterwards, it exists. If not, the conventionality does not exist. So, when we talk about the conventionality of things, conventional truth, that truth is posited from the point of view of the ignorance which sees things to have some kind of a true. So So we should have things that we can actually talk about, like actions, agents, and otherwise you would say there's nothing, and that is quite complicated. When you reach a high level in highest yoga tantra experience, where you are able to actually control your all your conceptions, then perhaps the yogi is able to say is not affected by the conventionality of things, the afflictive emotions and so forth, and because of that they may be able to say such and such things do not have any existence or something like that. But and then, of course, there are the Taoist teachings where the masters have actually shown a very high level of experience of the path, and which may be suitable to a certain to some specific disciples, but not for all. So we cannot say that things do not exist just like that, without having a true understanding of what you mean. So things internal and external cannot be found when searched for. So the fact that the things have no objective existence is their truth, and that emptiness itself also is empty of true existence. So next we are talking about the two types of negations or objects, negative phenomena as they're called. The non-implying, is it? Non-implicating negative and the implicating negative. So verses 100, I think 11, 12. So the teachings so far covered the analysis of mindfulness of body, mindfulness of feeling, mindfulness of phenomena, are covered. Mind, yeah. So here the teachings on the mindfulness of mind and so forth in relation to their being empty of any true existence is taught. So rejecting causeless production from verse 116 onwards. So by direct perception of the conventional world and so forth, what has produced those multiple causes, the various multiple causes. Why does a cause have the ability to bring an effect? Well, due to the power of previous causes. So this is similar to the Darwinian theory of evolution, that things come from their causes and conditions. Next is rejecting the production from a permanent cause. Verse 118, if Ishvara were the cause of the world and so forth. So if there is a permanent autonomous in the single self, then it says, and what could it be that he wished to create? The self? And then it says, well, are not the self, the earth and the rest, and Ishvara is supposed to be eternal by nature. So within the Buddhist philosophical system, the Vaibhashikas say that consciousness actually takes on the aspect of phenomena, and this is what scientists also say. So whether a consciousness is a mistaken one or not, but there is an appearance of the object that it perceives. And therefore, the Madhyamakas say that the Prasangika Madhyamakas say that any consciousness that arises is valid cognition in relation to the the appearance. And happiness is also a consciousness, and therefore it must have a connection with its causes. So in the verse 116 it says the multiple parts like lotus, stalk and so forth grows by means of multiple causes. And so happiness also arises in connection with a cause, which is creating some karma out of some good motivation. So when we talk about the world, in the Kala Chakratantra, there is a mention of a space element, space particle. So within the elements, there is the subtle element and the elements which arise from them, and then there is also the gross and subtle elements. And so the subtle elements, within the subtle elements, we maybe include the wind element, which is mentioned in our tantric text, with the 5 light. So, verse 122, happiness and suffering have arisen since beginningless from karma. So tell me, what has been created by Ishvara? And if there is no beginning to the cause, how can there be a beginning to the effect? Why does he not create continually, since he does not depend on anything else? If nothing exists that was not created by him, on what does he depend in order to create? If and so rejecting production from permanent causes goes from 118 to 126. Then next is rejection of production from permanent primal substance. 127 says, for some chaos, the universal constituents, courage, particles, and darkness were abiding in balance, called imbalance, is called, when abiding in balance is called primal substance. Their imbalance is said to be the migrators. Illogical is it for a unity to have a threefold nature. Therefore, it does not exist. Likewise, the qualities cannot be existent because each of them also has three aspects. And in the absence of these the qualities, the existence of sound and so forth becomes far-fetched. Moreover, it is impossible for pleasure and so on to exist in non-existent clothing and the like. For things having the nature of their causes, have not functional things already been analyzed. The causes for you are the very pleasure and so forth. Cotton clothing and the like do not arise from those. Pleasure and so on arise from cotton clothing and the like. Since these do not exist, pleasure and so on do not exist. Moreover, even the permanence of pleasure and so on have never been seen. If manifest pleasure and so on are existent, why is their experience not felt? The experience that turns into a subtle state. If it becomes subtle after leaving gross state, the gross and subtle states are impermanent. So our verses, I think from 137 down, shows that things are dependently originated. And whatever is dependent on conditions is said to be empty. And Nagarjuna says, if things were to if you perceive things to have some inherent existence, then you would have to say that things have no dependence, and therefore causes and conditions cannot give rise to effects. So reasoning. So verse 143 down shows reasoning of dependent origination to establish view of selflessness. And then 445 shows reasoning of to establish emptiness from the viewpoint of effect. Master Nagarjuna's verse of salutation in his fundamental treatise of the middle way says, there's no birth and so forth. Word number 163 says that they fail to see their own suffering, although they are infested with extreme suffering. Oh dear, this really is the cause to lament for those who are caught in the rapids of samsara. So this gives cause for cultivating compassion. The ninth chapter is finished. Now the chapter 10. Verse 10, by the force of my virtues, by those caught in fiery torrents of acids, their flesh eaten away, revealing their white bones, obtain the bodies of celestials, and dwell with goddesses in gently flowing rivers. Why are the henchmen of Yama, the unbearable buzzards of vultures, afraid? Through whose noble strength is joy brought upon us and darkness dispelled. Looking up, they behold in the firmament the radiant form of Vajrapani. Through the force of their joy may they be free from wrongdoing and find his company. When they see the lava fires of hell extinguished by rain of falling flowers mixed with scented water, immediately satisfied, they wonder whose work this was. In this way may those in hell behold Padmapani. Friends, don't be afraid, but quickly gather here. What need is there to flee when above us is the youthful Manjughosha to dispel our fears, the tender Bodhisattva who protects all living beings, through whose might all suffering is removed and the force of joy abounds. Behold him in an enchanting palace resounding with hymns sung by 1,000 goddesses, with the tiaras of 100 gods being offered to his lotus feet, and a rain of many flowers falling on his head, the eyes of which are moist with kindness. Upon his Manjughosha, seeing Manjughosha in this way, may those in hell cry out loud with joy. Likewise, having seen due to the roots of my wholesome deeds the cool and sweet-smelling rain falling from joyful clouds created by the Bodhisattva Samandabhadra and Savanivarana Vishkambini, may all beings in hell be truly happy. May all animals be free from fear of being eaten by one another. May the hungry ghosts be as happy as the people of the northern continent. May they be satisfied by a stream of milk pouring from the hand of the noble Lord Avalokiteshvara, and by bathing in it, may they always be cooled. May the blind see form, may the deaf hear sounds, and just as it was with Maya Devi, may pregnant women give birth without any pain. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drink, may the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy, may the forlorn find a new hope, constant happiness and prosperity. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from the illness, and may every disease in the world never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting one another. May all travelers find happiness everywhere they go, and without any effort may they accomplish whatever they set out to do. May those who sail in ships and boats obtain whatever they wish for, and having safely returned to the shore, may they joyfully reunite with their relatives. May troubled wanderers who have lost their way meet with fellow travelers, and without any fear of thieves and tigers. May their going be easy without any fatigue. May those who find themselves in trackless, fearful wildernesses, the children, the aged, the unprotected, those stupefied and the insane, be guarded by beneficent celestials. May beings be free from all states of no leisure, and be endowed with faith, wisdom, and kindness. May food obtained in a proper manner and excellent conduct. May they be mindful throughout their lives. May all beings be without want for wealth, just like the treasury of space, and without it being the source of dispute or harm. May they always enjoy it as they wish. May those who have little splendor come to be endowed with its majesty, and may those whose bodies are worn with toil find magnificent and noble forms. May all life forms in the universe take birth in higher forms. May the lowly obtain grandeur, and may the proud be humbled. By the merits I have accumulated, may every single being abandon all forms of wrongdoing and perpetually engage in virtue. May they never be parted from their awakening mind, and may they always engage in Bodhisattva contacts. May they be cared for by the Buddhas and relinquish the actions of devils. May sentient beings have lives inconceivably long. May they always live in contentment, unfamiliar with even the word death. May there abound in all directions gardens of wish-fulfilling trees, filled with the sweet sound of Dharma proclaimed by the Buddhas and their children. And may the land everywhere be pure, smooth, devoid of any rocks, level like the palm of a hand, and of the nature of lapis lazuli. For all the circles of disciples, may many bodhisattvas dwell in every land, adorning them with excellent manifestations. So with this, we have finished the teaching on the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. Now I will read once again from the beginning. In the language of India, Bodhisattva Charyavatara; in the language of Tibet, Chandrasemba Jabala Jukpa, and in English translation, engaging in the Bodhisattva deeds. Respectfully, verse number 1a, 1b, verse number 2, 3, 4, number 5, 6. So all the Buddhas who have contemplated for many years have seen it to be beneficial. So this is like the spring teaching that I usually do. So from today, those who have come from different parts, you will disperse to your own places, and your mind is always with you, and therefore make your mind closer and closer. You have to put effort to make your mind closer and closer to what is taught in this text, Bodhisattva Charyavatara. And then you have also taken part in the Bodhi ceremony for generating aspiring bodhicitta, and also engaging in engaging bodhicitta and bodhisattva vows. And also, and during the initiation, you have said that you will keep forever without decline the universal yoga mind, which is when you meditated on the two types of bodhicitta, conventional and ultimate, and you have repeated the Om Sarva Yoga Citta mantra after me. So, having pledged to keep these two, the bodhicitta and the meditation on view of emptiness, are the most important practices. Of course, you have your daily commitments as well, but on a daily basis, you should meditate on bodhicitta and the view of emptiness. So on a daily basis, you can also use the text for the 7-limb prayer, as we did in the morning, reading the 2nd chapter, and then the third chapter to the end of 22nd verse. and then you should generate the bodhicitta and engaging bodhicitta and aspiring bodhicitta and the engaging bodhicitta. And so if you do it on a daily basis, then you'll make this life a meaningful one. So whatever merit we have gained through this teaching on the Bodhisattva Acharya Avatara, that's dedicated for the long life of all the spiritual gurus, our masters, and also for peace and harmony in the world, as well as for the peace and freedom in Tibet. As I have made this prayer, let us dedicate the merit for that. So the Tibetans inside Tibet are undergoing so much hardship, and despite all these, they keep their spirit alive and strong. So let us pray, as it is said in this prayer, on all the people who completely give up their cherished body, life, and possessions and endure hardships, hundreds of hardships for the sake of doctrine, its holders, their country, and their temperate. May they be guarded by the compassionate protector of Patala, generous Sikh.